Okay. Looks like everything's working. Okay. Welcome everyone to the council meeting. Prior to the open session, we had a closed meeting, and it was moved by Councillor Horn and seconded by Councillor McCann that pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended, Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moves to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to D, labor relations or employee negotiations, QP collective agreement negotiations, and K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, municipal shared services. That was carried and the meeting was had. Now, before we get started, I have a statement that I'd like to make. Like many of you, I was horrified by the discovery last week of the undocumented remains of 215 buried children in Kamloops Residential School. On behalf of council and the town, I want to express to the survivors, their families, our sorrow upon hearing of this news. It must be rekindling the grief and trauma of the residential school experience, which in turn was an instrument of colonization. In keeping with collective mourning across the country, flags at the Town Hall, Bobby Orr Community Center, and the Cenotaph and Market Square Park are flying at half-mast until further notice. We continue to remember and acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty and the Métis that traveled the waterways of the area. Is there any prioritization of the agenda? No? Okay, may I have a mover and seconder for the agenda? Councillor Horn, Councillor Burden. The council agenda for June 1st, 2021 be approved as circulated. Anyone opposed to the passing of that resolution? No, that's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? No. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to take a few minutes to hold an electronic public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment under Section 34 of the Planning Act. May I have a mover and seconder for this first resolution? Councillor McCann, Councillor Borneman, that we do now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. Anyone opposed to that? No, that's carried then. Ms. Johnson, could you explain how the public was notified of zoning bylaw amendment Z 21-03 William Street, Robert L. Tuttle, LK&K Investment Limited?
Yes, Your Worship, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters, posted on the property, and it was placed on the town's website.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LG, can you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Absolutely. The applicant has requested a change of the zoning of the property from residential medium density R2 to a general commercial C1 zone. They are intended to use it for, they're intended to use the property for parking, which the residential zone does not permit. The lands are vacant and do not have a municipal address, but are described as Part 1 of 42R 112.
Okay, thank you. As this is an electronic public meeting under the Planning Act due to COVID-19, we'll call upon those in electronic attendance if they wish to comment. Please make sure you have your screen on and that you signal the camera or raise your hand if you wish to speak. Our moderator will call out individuals when it's their turn to speak. Please keep your microphone muted until it's your turn to speak. So at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? I'm going to give it a moment just in case someone's trying to get this. If so, you would identify yourself by name and your address. Okay. So does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed bylaw amendment? And if so, please identify yourself by name and give your address. Give it another minute. No? Okay. Mr. Elgie, have there been any letters received as a result of the notice?
Yes, so far we've received one letter of objection from Mr. John Grosky, who owns a neighboring property. I'll attach an original of the letter with my staff report when it proceeds to council. He has concerns with how the property was acquired because it was sold by the municipality quite some time ago. Also has concerns with this resulting in backlot development, the way the current property owner has been acting around his neighbors, and general concerns of zoning bylaw compliance, and that this is inappropriate use of the lands.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The public should contact staff or check the town's website to see when this amendment will come back for a decision. Council, at its discretion, may approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If so, it must either circulate notice of passing of the bylaw or give notice in the local press. Objections to the passing of the bylaw will be received by the clerk within 20 days from the date of such notice is given, which objections will be forwarded to the local planning appeal tribunal. And if the appeal is submitted and the appellant has not provided council with an oral or written submission before the passing of the bylaw, the local planning appeal tribunal may choose to dismiss the appeal. Thank you, everyone. And may I have a mover and seconder for adjourning this meeting? Councillor Keith and Councillor Horn, that we do now declare the public meeting closed. Anyone opposed to that? No, it's carried. We're on with the regular agenda. Okay. Next is mover and seconder for the regular minutes. Councillor Borneman, Councillor Burden. The minutes from the regular council meeting held May 18th, 2021 be approved as circulated. Any discussion on those minutes at all? No? Okay. Anyone opposed to the passing of those minutes? That's carried then. Next is questions of staff, and I actually have one for tonight. It's for Mr. Kearns. Mr. Kearns, can you give us an update on the boat launch at the salt dock? As I've had some inquiries from people wondering when that's going to be possibly opened up.
Certainly, Your Worship. So the boat launch at the salt dock unfortunately took a bit of damage. The ramp itself this past winter. It appears that in previous years, probably when the water was quite low compared to where we have been over the last couple of years, asphalt was installed up to the concrete slabs that form the in-water ramp portion of the boat launch. That asphalt was actually moved quite a bit this past winter with the ice movement in that area. So it's hazardous right now. So Having said that, we've had a look at it and we are assessing a couple of options for removal of the damaged asphalt and replacement with concrete. So we are looking at some precast options because while the water level has been dropping, it didn't quite drop far enough to allow us to work on that ramp with the water levels where they are. So we're going to look at some precast options to replace that asphalt with concrete so we can avoid this situation in the future and make the ramp safe for use. So we hope to do that shortly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Councillor McCann and then Councillor Borneman.
Okay, thank you. This is for Chief Thompson. Is he online here this evening?
Yep.
Okay, so there's been a lot of talk with the COVID-19 recently and sort of a migration to the north here, and that just sort of exacerbates our housing program. There's been a lot of talk in neighboring municipalities about putting the kibosh on short-term cottage rentals. Is there anything in place in Parry Sound that would prohibit a short-term rental as far as an apartment goes, or perhaps anything to do with Airbnb? Simply, I was asked that question today and I thought, well, it's a good one to put forward tonight.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. At this time in the town of Parry Sound, there are no regulations with regards to short-term rentals. In other communities, most times regulations with regards to short-term rentals, the most utilized fashion is standalone bylaws or licensing bylaws to control those. Some municipalities are attempting to do it through their zoning bylaw, which it would generally be a poor tool to utilize for that fashion. However, at this time, we don't have any rules in effect, and to my knowledge, the complaints that have come into either planning, building, or bylaw are very few.
Okay, so there's nothing on the horizon at this point, especially looking at the new zoning bylaws coming into effect later this year. As you said, that would be a poor tool to use then, you're saying.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would be correct. Staff have not included anything to that effect in the comprehensive zoning bylaw that is in its final stage of preparation for council's review. And at this point, unless directed by council, staff don't have any intention to be including an item of that nature in the comprehensive zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to follow up with Mr. Cairns about that boat ramp. Mr. Cairns, when you say it'll be a precast fix, will this be something that's, you know, that we'll be able to take in and out to avoid more ice damage in future, or will this be a permanent placement of some sort at that location?
Through your worship. So it certainly, there's no intention to be removing it seasonally. These would be rather substantial slabs. So if you look at the construction of the in-water portion of the ramp itself, there are concrete slabs that appear to be precast. There's not a whole lot of history on exactly where they came from, but they're placed in succession to form the ramp in sections. So our intention was to add sections where the damaged asphalt is right now. I'll call it the intention is to be permanent insofar as we have no intentions of removing them seasonally. So should we be able to consider some changes to that ramp in the future, they should be able to be reused as well. So that's part of the thinking there. The concrete will be a whole lot more robust than the asphalt. Asphalt is a flexible concrete by definition, and the ice certainly proved that with the way it moved it this past winter. So we are looking at having some inspections done in water around that area this year. So hopefully that will provide us with some more decision-making abilities in terms of perhaps long-term fixes should they be required.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have two questions. One question I believe is definitely for Mr. Cairns, and it has to do with railing along Cascade Street Hill. I'm wondering where that process is now, because I think we're all getting anxious, hoping that we can be out and about a little bit more than we are now. Can you advise, please?
Certainly, through your worship. So we are still working on meeting with the local contractor who has some expertise in terms of being able to construct something that will, our intention is to have it be robust, stay in place, and not be affected by snow removal. So we're still, right now, we're still struggling with trying to meet people on site. It's certainly a lot more complicated than it ever used to be. So hopefully in the next short term, we'll be able to touch base on site and go over exactly what the possibilities are there. But it is still in the works and with the intention of getting it in as soon as we can.
Yes, Councillor Keith.
Follow up to that question, besides I have another one. A possible mid-range idea, are we talking August that we hope it'll be there, or are we talking October? What are you kind of gut feeling there, please?
Through your worship, well, hopefully if things can continue on the same trajectory that we're looking at in terms of provincial legislation, shutdowns, stay-at-home orders, all those sorts of things, should they continue on the same trajectory, we certainly should be in a much better position to know exactly what we can install by August for sure, with the intention certainly of having something in there before the weather changes again.
Thank you. My second question, I'm not sure if it would go to Mr. Cairns or to Chief Thompson, because maybe it has to do with the bylaw. What I noticed, and I'm very glad to see that nicer weather has come and people are cutting their grass. That's a great thing. However, we have an advisory accessibility committee, and we also know just when people are cutting the grass, we have some very tidy, conscientious people. However, there are some who, when they're cutting the grass, it ends up all over the sidewalk, and there's mounds of it sometimes, and that's not an exaggeration because I do walk. And my concern is that anybody who has any sort of disability issues, definitely if the rain comes along, that grass there can be very slippery. And I don't think any of us want to see an accident or broken bones. Do we have, is there any way that we can monitor or educate a bit so people recognize, you know, if you cut your grass and you got mounds of it, you're leaving it on the sidewalk, you need to sweep it, remove it somehow. What can be done there so we can educate and look after all of our citizens?
Certainly, through your worship, I can comment. We certainly have the ability to communicate that message and hopefully track if there are some particular areas that are perhaps seeing it more often than others. We can certainly do that. I would defer to Chief Thompson, as I'm not sure about any specific bylaws that there may be to address that situation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess it would be nice to think that it's common sense that people wouldn't leave mounds of grass on the municipal sidewalks, knowing that other people of our civil society utilize those for getting around. What I would suggest is that bylaw enforcement is happy to visit people if we find that there is a situation where people are leaving mounds of grass on the sidewalks, and we can have a very constructive conversation with them and attempt to provide education in that way, knowing that the majority of our residents are conscientious of these sorts of things. I would have to think that they'd be isolated cases, and we're more than happy to deal with those on one-offs if they come to our attention.
Okay. Any further questions of staff? Councillor Bachman?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is for Mr. Cairns this evening. Hello. In regards to the letter we received from Jane Hinchcliffe of 40 regarding 40 Wabeek Street and the easement that was she's written about several times. I'm just wondering if you can provide me with an update and what response we have provided her.
Certainly, through you, Your Worship. So that particular situation arose from the reconstruction of Wabeek and Prospect over that period of time when that reconstruction project was happening. So I have been in touch with our consulting engineers who have initiated contact with the contractor. So there were a number of circumstances, and I know perhaps it's getting old for everybody, but it is still a fact that COVID-19 has presented a number of challenges over the period of time when that project was finishing last year. There were some communication gaps, I'll suggest, between all the parties involved in terms of having the situation addressed as the letter indicated. So the engineers have already been in contact with our contractor on that project, and we are moving ahead with coming to resolution on those issues that were identified in there.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And I have one more question, Mr. McGarvey. My question is for Mr. Harris.
Did you say it was for Mr. Cairns?
Yes, hello, Mr. Harris.
Oh, Harris, okay, sorry.
Sorry. We have a delegation from Absolutely Georgian Bay this evening, and I recall when they submitted their letter of introduction earlier this year. I'm just wondering if you had any conversations with the organization, if you can provide an update in advance of the delegation, please.
Through the mayor, what I did ask the organization for is a copy of their articles of incorporation. I was curious, wanted to understand how to become a member, and since there's a request for public funds, I wanted to understand, is it an open membership, is it a closed membership, and just how it was organized. My understanding of their delegation of the material that they provided this evening and from their articles of incorporation, you can become a member, by submitting, by paying your membership fees. And so it seems like it's open to anyone that feels they'll be of benefit from the organization.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, just one last question as a follow-up with that. Was there anything allocated in our budget in regards to that request?
I believe the request is for $500, and there wasn't a specific line item or an amount allocated specifically for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No? Okay. Correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Yes, Your Worship, we have several items of correspondence. The first is from the municipality of McDougall. It's notice we received of their official plan review in a special meeting, so we're just forwarding this on. That date is Wednesday, June 23rd at 7 p.m. We have a resolution from the Township of Jolly regarding prioritizing vaccine allocation to health unit regions that are still in phase 1. Of course, this is an initiative that started back in March. So this, we had quite a few of those resolutions circulated by municipalities in the Parry Sound District. And this is just perhaps one of the last ones we're getting in. Referred to earlier in the questions of staff, there is a letter here from Jane Hinchcliffe regarding the condition of her property on Wabeek Street. We have two letters from members of the public regarding the so-called Rabbit Canyon, and support for the town's position of not approving a bridge over the fitness trail for vehicular traffic, and hoping that it will come in the public domain. And lastly, we have a letter from Varka Kanani with concerns over the housing crisis, price of housing, price for new home buyers, and the hope that council will do anything in its power to advocate for change there. And those are the items of correspondence.
Okay, thank you. So we have 3 deputations tonight, and our first deputation is Staff Sergeant Jeremy Mcdonald from the OPP as an introduction. Welcome, Jeremy.
Good evening, Worship. How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for having me here this evening. Normally we do this in person, but here we are. So I know most of you right now. I just wanted a couple minutes of your time to introduce myself. Like you said, Jeremy Mcdonald. I've recently been promoted here as a detachment commander for West Parry Sound OPP. This happened this past December, and I'm currently here working with our partners in our community.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Staff Sergeant McDonald? Councillor Backman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Welcome, Mr. McDonald, and thank you for coming to our meeting this evening. I guess just in summation, if you could provide or note what some of your short-term and long-term goals are within the community, and what you see are the needs that we need to focus on.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, I've been a police officer here with the OPP since 2008. I've held various ranks within the organization in Parry Sound, both as a patrol officer, a detective constable, a patrol sergeant, and administrative sergeant, most recently as a detachment commander. So I have an extensive knowledge of the community that we serve here, having lived in it and policed it for well over a decade. Some of the priorities that we have are throughout our agency as well as our local detachment. Those are actually outlined in our current business plan or action plan that was just recently released on the OPP internet site. So that action plan is for 2020 to 2022, and it consists of 3 main areas. The first area is obviously our crime situation in our community. And our main focus is to address and prevent crime with a focus on victim support. The next area is our patrolling of our roadways, our waterways, and our trails. And in order to do that effectively and efficiently, we're going to focus on the big 4. That is distracted driving, wearing seatbelts, driving while under the influence of alcohol or other drugs, and then obviously speeding. And then lastly, it's our other operational commitments. And that we're actually working on right now. And that is working in conjunction with our local hospital in order to complete our police hospital transition care protocol with a focus on patient transfer within our 2 agencies, as well as supporting our other agencies like Anishinaabe Police Service and so on.
Councillor Borneman.
Well, first of all, Jeremy, congratulations on your promotion. It's good to see someone in the post who is committed to the community. That's important. I wanted to ask how the new facility is working out, how that's changed policing patterns in the community. Are we seeing more crime downtown because of the lack of presence? And finally, how COVID is impacting domestic abuse, drug overdoses, those types of things that we read about in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Borneman. Actually, we are extremely content with our new detachment. It's been a long time coming, as you can imagine. Our previous location was extremely dated. Our demographics have changed in our community, which is a direct result in the changing of the policing functions that we have to provide. Location wise, absolutely, you're probably going to see a change in the frequency of our cruisers in the downtown core. And that's for obvious reasons that we're deploying closer to the highway now. I can tell you that the majority of our calls for service do not happen downtown. So when you were seeing our police vehicles coming and going from the detachment, it was merely to travel through the area. As far as actual analytics and the calls for service in the downtown area, I haven't seen a drastic increase. I've actually gone through this with Councillor Keith during our CPAC meetings, and there's nothing that's really coming off the chart right now that's causing me any concern. Like any other agency within our community, the pandemic has impacted us. To speak specifically to our calls for service, I cannot say that I've seen a drastic increase. Obviously, the demographics have changed within our community. Anybody who shops here during the summer months notices how busy it is. And then in the off season, they notice it decreases. I can tell you from my own personal experience, we definitely have more people residing in our community. And when you have an influx of people and a population in your community, just like anything else, it's going to be impacted not only through policing, through EMS, public works. We have more people, we're going to have more work to do. I don't know if that answers your question completely.
Okay.
I'm sure the autopsy will be done over time. Thank you.
Councillor Keith?
Yes, Staff Sergeant, I'm wondering for the public and members here, if you could explain just a little bit about the situational or impact table that the OPP have in this area and how it works with various agencies and how proactive we have been in this community, because I think this is something that many communities do not have. And I think it's important for people to know the positives.
Absolutely, Councillor Keith. We are extremely fortunate. We live in a small community, which means that our agencies work closely together. What Councillor Keith is referring to is our impact table, which is a situation table. And essentially that comprises of all the different agencies within our community that get together on a predetermined basis. And if they have identified any specific person who is in dire needs or in crisis in the community, then these agencies can sit down and meet and get a plan together to assist this individual and take them out of the crisis stage that they're currently in. We are very fortunate here. We've had this table up and running for several years now. And especially during this pandemic, this has been such a great tool to ensure that we can support the members in our community that need the help that we have available to provide to them.
Good. Thank you. Any further questions? No. Okay. Thank you. And again, congratulations on your promotion to detachment commander. Good
Thank you,
job.
Greg.
Well done. And appreciate you being here, and welcome back. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I'll be back. Just
Thanks.
invite me. Take care.
Take care. All right, our next deputation is Chair Jay Aspin and Vice Chair John Cochran, Director Craig Miles, Acting Superintendent Gay Smiley of the Near North District School Board. Welcome.
We are pleased to have accepted your invitation to present to you and your councillors tonight. We are also pleased that your MPP, Nora Miller, could join us. I have with me tonight our Near North team. Besides myself as chair, I'm joined by your local board representative, John Cochran, our vice chair and chair of the Parry Sound Build Committee. As well, our Director of Education, Craig Miles, and our Superintendent, Gay Smiley, who has been intimately involved in this project since inception. Gay leads our capital planning portfolio. Well, it's been a long journey. As a result of a number of ARCs and a multitude of consultations, we are here to present our final product, which we are very proud. This product was tabled at our May board meeting some 2 weeks ago, We are delighted that you, your worship, and your counselors, leaders of the Parry Sound community, are the first to share the composition of our future school. Our architects have done a great job in assembling the needs of 3 former schools and landed within the finance and programming parameters of the Ministry of Education. We are proud of this final project, particularly as our architects have reflected the significant Indigenous culture that is very much an important part of your community region. In fact, our Indigenous trustee Nicole King, chaired the Architectural Selection Committee to make sure of that. And now I'll hand it over to Vice Chair John Cochran, and who is your hardworking local trustee who has been very much a driving force behind this project. John, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Mayor, for inviting us, and thank you, councillors. Short little speech here. In Parry Sound, we're blessed with fresh air and clean water. I came here 7 years ago from Sudbury after 12 years as chair of Cambrian College and chair of audit and finance at the college. Parry Sound, when I came here, had no French language program and a 71-year-old dinosaur posing as a high school. I was determined to change this, and thanks to a caring, supportive board and outstanding senior school staff, we are back in the 21st century in Parry Sound. The groundwork for these achievements can be laid directly at the feet of our chair of the Architect Selection Committee, Nicole King. Nicole, we're lucky to have Nicole. She's our First Nation representative. During the 4 weeks of December, we, with the assistance of our senior staff, poured through thousands of pages of architects' proposals, which is this. We held in-depth interviews with the 8 candidates from all over Canada. We finally selected Benton Architects, one of North America's finest premier experienced builders of schools of all kinds and all sizes. For Parry Sound to grow, and we're all interested in Parry Sound growing, 3 things are needed. The first thing is a first-class medical facility. And I can tell you, I'm 72 years old, and unfortunately, I've had to use them all. And we have a first-class hospital, we have first-class clinics, and we have first-class doctors, nurses, dentists, specialists. We're blessed with the people that we have in Parry Sound. We also have good local government. And I can tell you, I came here from Sudbury, and I am so impressed by the level of service that your workers in your community service us with. First class. I would say that my taxes in Sudbury are about the same as here. Everybody moans they're high, but I'll tell you, the degree of service here is at least 50% better than it ever was in Sudbury. In 2 years, we'll have everything. We'll have it all. I would be remiss in my final remarks if I did not thank our MPP, Norm Miller, who, as a community leader, both at Queen's Park and in Parry Sound, has faithfully supported our new school. And I would really like to thank Norm. He has been a bastion of strength for us. He helps us in any way he can to make things work. Thank you, Norm. And thank you, Council.
Thank you. Did you have any other presentation, or was that pretty much it? Can we go right to questions?
I think what we'd like to do, Your Worship, is I'd like to hand it over to Craig Miles to say a few words. Our
Okay.
very competent director. Craig, please.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I have some connectivity issues. I was already lost the connection at one point in time, so my apologies. Hopefully the message comes through clear. Thank you, Vice Chair Cochran, for those words of encouragement. And thank you to Mayor and Council for inviting us to this meeting as well. We think it's extremely important for our community outreach and our ongoing solidifying of our partnerships throughout the communities where we have our schools. So thank you very much for your invitation. I'd also like to acknowledge the Ministry of Education for the funding they've committed to all our Near North District School Board trustees, particularly I would say the champions for this particular project would be Chair Aspen, Vice Chair Cochran, and Trustee King, who have worked very hard behind the scenes to ensure that this project moves ahead as aggressively as we possibly can. So thank you to their commitment, and also to all the senior staff who have helped to steward this project along. With all hands on deck, we've managed to pull ourselves, along this far in a fairly short period of time, considering the historical nature of the project. We're really happy to be engaged, as I said, with the community. We continue to engage with the community as we have in the past, and we look forward to moving this project ahead, as Vice Chair Cochran said, for the community, for the parents, for the families, but of course, first and foremost, for our students. And we really believe that we're going to have a really solid building in place. There is going to be alignment with the facility structure and school programming priorities for students, which is our, our number one priority, to serve the students of that community and ensure that we have the best possible teaching and learning environment for student success and well-being that we can possibly provide within the parameters that we are working within. At that, I will turn this at this time over to Acting Superintendent Gay Smiley, who is going to lead the council through a fairly high-level description of what the final product will look like. So thank you very much again, and over to you, Superintendent Smiley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Miles. Good evening, everyone. And you will see in front of you on your screen just a slide presentation that will accompany the story of the JK to 12 build. Good evening, everyone. The JK to 12 students within the Parry Sound region will soon benefit from a modern and innovative building in which they will learn and practice 21st century skills. Let's have a quick look back. This year, Nobel Public School will be 100 years old, and Parry Sound High School, as Vice Chair Cochran has mentioned, is more than 70 years old, and McDougall Public School is 60 years old. A combination of aging facilities, schools with very close proximity to each other, and excess capacity made these three schools a good candidate for consolidation and to build a new school. In 2013, following an accommodation review recommending the consolidation of Nobel, McDougall, and Parry Sound High School to a JK to 12 school, a business case was submitted to the ministry. Funding for the JK to 12 build was approved in March 2015. And in October 2015, funding was announced for childcare. And later on, in 2017, an Ontario early years space. In April 2015, a site selection committee was formed and a site consultant was contracted that researched and presented findings for the 20 sites that were investigated and considered. Then finally, in June 2017, the Parry Sound Secondary School site was approved by the board. It would be ideal for the new JK to 12 campus given its vast size, which is more than 18 acres. City services that were already in place and the ability to build around the existing school. The board already owned the property. In October 2017, the Parry Sound Building Committee which included the chair of the board, regional trustees, the capital projects manager, senior staff, and the director of education, began discussing preliminary design options to meet the programming needs identified by stakeholders. Stakeholder consultation at that time was broad and included community employers, staff at the 3 consolidating schools, students, plant, and representatives of the 5 First Nations communities that our Parry Sound region serves. Simultaneously, several site studies and environmental investigations were being conducted, including subsurface conditions, surface topography, and traffic studies. By February 2018, the committee was informed that the funding values were drastically reduced due to delays in selecting a site and the increasing cost of construction. The committee then sought input from the ministry's capital branch, who suggested that given declining enrollment projections in the region, a grade 7 to 12 school could be considered. The building committee agreed to the suggestion, but when it was brought forward to the ministry for approval, they concluded that this plan was too far from the original ARC findings, and therefore a second accommodation review would be required to proceed. Accommodation reviews were not possible due to the moratorium on ARCs that was imposed June 28, 2017 by then Education Minister Mitzi Hunter. And then despite attempts by our then chair of the board to meet with local and provincial government in 2018, the grade 7 to 12 school build was unable to move forward at that time. Let's look at finding some solutions. In the fall of 2018, senior staff began to rethink solutions that might address the new provincial funding challenges and the low enrollment projections. These solutions included building a school with a smaller footprint and the use of temporary instructional space to reduce costs to support a decreased budget and take into account the declining student enrollment. Further, utilization at Parry Sound Public School was another consideration, given that by 2027, 2028, the projected utilization at this school would be 58%, when this school would be only 12 years old. In the fall of 2018, the municipal election resulted in a new board of trustees for the Near North District School Board, led by Jay Aspen as the chair of the board and John Cochran as the vice chair. Work began with the ministry to resolve the dilemma of the declining value of the original 2015 funding for the JK to 12 Parry Sound build, while the projected enrollment continued to decline. Then in March 2020, new funding for the Parry Sound JK to 12 build was announced by Jay Aspen at a press conference at the Parry Sound High School. The funding was adjusted to 2020 values, and the number of students the school would be built for was adjusted from 1,066 students to 866 students, a decline of 200 students. Moving forward to the new build. In February 2021, the Board of Trustees hired the Venton Group, VG Architects, for the new Parry Sound JK to 12 school. Since that time, the board's project team has been meeting with the architects regularly and is currently working through the conceptual design phase, which includes site and floor plans. The board has established the Parry Sound JK to 12 building ad hoc committee to ensure that all pistons are firing as we drive full force towards our goal of a September 2023 opening. To meet this target and ensure that all program needs and key schedule milestones are met, 2 subcommittees have been struck to prioritize the program and build targets. In order to ensure that current students can safely attend school during the new school construction timeframe, this project will occur in 2 phases: demolition and construction. Partial demolition of the northwest side of the school will allow for adequate space during the build, and this includes a separate entrance for construction vehicles, as well as construction fencing around the perimeter of the project. These key safety measures will ensure students and school transportation can continue to function as they currently do. We are very excited to be working alongside the Benton Group for this project. They bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to our team. They're well-versed in all elements related to childcare, early years, elementary and secondary learning spaces, as well as spaces for our Indigenous learners to practice their traditions, which means that our students, no matter what the grade, will benefit from specifically designed learning environments that mirror the developmental, social, and academic needs of each child at each stage of their learning journey. Current schematic designs utilize an L shape to support two separate wings that will allow for individualized elementary and secondary spaces. Shared spaces featured in the nook of the L shape will include the lobby, gym, cafeteria, learning commons, and administration offices. Many 21st century learning features will be included, such as collaborative spaces, a learning commons, and flexible seating throughout. The childcare and JK to 12 campus will allow for ample outdoor spaces, including intentionally structured and individualized play yards for our childcare operators, kindergarten learners, and our elementary students. All students will continue to benefit from the green spaces located on the 18-acre property, which will be maintained as part of the design. It is established practice for the Ministry of Education to consider the region's declining enrollment when working with boards to determine future space requirements. As a result, our architects have created a uniquely designed hex pod that is attractive, innovative, and create an inspiring learning space. This new approach to temporary classrooms was designed by the Benton Group and was featured in Building Magazine, August 2020. The benefits of this new design, which includes 120-degree corners, allows pods to be clustered in a honeycomb shape. The hexagonal space feels more spacious and fosters a sense of collaboration, very much in line with the 21st century collaboration spaces that will be featured throughout the school. The hex pods are featured in the slide in front of you. These pods also offer increased natural light, fresh air, and eco-friendly design. The hex pods will provide an additional 138 spaces for our Parry Sound students. Despite the setbacks along the way, we are very pleased with the conceptual designs to date and look forward to collecting community feedback. We believe that all students, staff, parents, and community members will find that this modern campus provides them with many academic, social, and athletic opportunities to learn, grow, and play in a space that inspires personal growth, interconnection, and creativity. A presentation is scheduled for June the 8th at 7 p.m. to present an early look at plans for the new school. Members of the public are welcome to attend and can find details at the Near North District School Board website, nearnorthschools.ca, where you can also leave feedback regarding tonight's presentation. Thank you. I'll now turn it back over to Chair Aspen.
Was there anything else, Chair Aspen, or no? Was that the end of the presentation, or Mr. Vice Chair Cochran? Was that the end of the presentation? It was? Okay. I know there's questions. I know I have a number here. I've had people from the community get a hold of me and ask if some questions could be asked tonight to get some answers. So I take it that the new school, because all through the presentation I heard about declining enrollment. And what I will preface this with is that, you know, I'm concerned about the size of the school and what it will handle in the future. And because of COVID, we have seen an increase in population because people are realizing that they can live here and do their work and maybe commute back and forth once in a while, but they can have their family here and they can live in a less crowded environment than what they do in the GTA. So that's something we've seen not only in our community here in Parry Sound, but also in the surrounding communities as well. And my concern moving forward is that we make sure we build a school big enough that is going to be able to handle this population. Because my other concern is, I've been told, is that Parry Sound Public School is already pushing at the seams. So if Parry Sound Public School is pushing at the seams, we can't underrate a new build moving forward. So the one question was since the new school will be smaller in size to the current high school, was there a cost analysis done to upgrade the current high school to accommodate the closing of McDougall and Nobel schools? Does someone want to answer that?
Craig should answer it. Is Craig on? Is he on? Can you unmute Craig, Miles? Hello. Jay, is Craig there?
Oh, sorry, I was having trouble. I couldn't get in again, but can you hear me now? I seem to be okay.
I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much. As Superintendent Smiley pointed out earlier, the situation that we're faced with currently is we have gone through the ARC process, which is the pupil accommodation process a few years ago, and there's a current moratorium on ARCs, which means we are at a bit of an impasse regarding doing anything much differently for the foreseeable future if we don't follow through with this particular model, and B, what I can say is we can assure you that studies were done and the building is aligned with any projected enrollment that that we have conducted. If you want to jump in there, Superintendent Smiley, with anything further to that that you may be more privy to as per your past work or work on the committee, please, through the mayor, of course.
Thank you. Through Mayor McGarvey, I will take just continue with the answering of this question. If our projected enrollments did happen to increase exponentially, certainly the ministry would assist in a response to that if that were to happen. We are currently building according to the facts that we have in front of us, and if those change, adjustments would be made. I know you had another part of this question. The question had to do with has anyone looked at the cost to rebuild the existing school? And I believe that in and around the time when the business case was submitted to the ministry from that period back in 2013 to 2015, the renewal needs that showed for the school at that time and into the future just created a situation where it did not, it was cheaper to build a new school than it would have been to repair, remembering that this school now is over 70 years old. Thank you.
Okay. I've got a series of questions here that the public have asked me to ask, and I realize that I know a number of the answers to these questions already, but because I was part of the site selection process when that happened. But because they have asked me to ask these questions, I will ask them for them, because there are a number of residents in McDougall that are concerned about the closing of 2 schools in McDougall as well. So next question was there a community consultation done with the residents of McDougall Township regarding the closing of 2 elementary schools? And I know that some parents do not feel comfortable sending their young children to a school with high school age children. That was a question from public.
I will start. Thank you for the question.
Yep.
What I can say is the concerns with young students attending school with older students in it. This is a common practice throughout the province. I haven't worked myself as an administrator in a kindergarten to grade 12 school. It's a fantastic environment. The bonding and the relationship that occurs in those buildings between the younger and older students is amazing. Most of the time, it involves siblings and friends of siblings. So it's actually quite a tight environment and creates lots of fantastic learning opportunities for students of all age. The second piece of the question, I again will defer to Superintendent Smiley, if that's okay, because it refers to some of the past dialogue or communication with the communities. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Director Miles, and through you, Mayor McGarvey. Yes, and remembering that there was an accommodation review, which was required for this decision to have been made. And remember, the decision was the consolidation of the 3 schools, Nobel, McDougall, and Parry Sound High School into a JK to 12 build. And that was the community consultation. And you'll remember from the beginning of the presentation where I spoke about why the 3 schools were involved in an accommodation review. It had to do with the age of the facilities, the close proximity of the facilities to each other, and also the excess capacity. You will also have seen on another slide that where I had placed the projected enrollment for the upcoming school year. That would be September 2021. And what it depicts is that each one of those schools is sitting at 50% or less enrollment. And unfortunately, we're not funded for all of those excess spaces. So that ends up coming out of somewhere else and then ends up impacting program, which is, not something that any of us want to see. Thank you.
Okay.
Your Worship, I've just joined. I'm sorry, I've been kicked off the system 3 times, so I'm just catching up here. But I can tell you, I first joined the school board in '76. I've been on this board 3 times over the last 45 years. And this is a phenomena that is going right across the province. And the Ministry of Education has recognized that consolidations are happening everywhere. I know when I was on the board for the second time in the late 1990s, early 2000s, there was a fear that, these big bad brute high school kids would be offensive to the elementary kids. We've done it in Nipissing on 2 or 3 occasions, and in the near north part, on 2 or 3 occasions. And absolutely the opposite is true. There's a synergy. The younger kids benefit with the amalgamation. At any rate, I would like to point out that we have a website, nearnorthschools.ca, and it contains an open invitation for all comments and all feedback, and that is open to the public. We are moving forward with this type of arrangement. It's been a long time. It's been 8 years. And as our vice chair has pointed out, we need to move forward. Parry Sound needs this school.
Okay. So now in the new build, has there been, and I think you addressed this in the remarks, that there has been consideration given regarding shared community space?
Is that directed at
It
Superintendent
can
Smiley?
be whoever.
Superintendent Smiley, could you respond to that, please?
Yes, absolutely, Chair Aspen, and through you, Mayor McGarvey. During the ARC process back in 2013, and then again in 2018, and certainly during the site selection, I am aware that this was a topic that was quite talked about quite a lot at that time. And just like Parry Sound High School right now, we do welcome the school community to use the facility, and that's a simple process to apply online through our school website, or sorry, through the board website, and to reserve a space for the use of the school. And we intend to continue with that, as we do with every school throughout our board.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Now, something that I know Vice Chair Cochran and I have talked about before is skilled trades and how important they are, and how we need skilled trades in our community. And so has there been consideration given in the new build to pods or classes that will develop skilled trades? And if you have an idea of what they are, I think I would be interested in knowing, and I think the public would be interested in knowing as well.
Superintendent Smiley, could you respond to that, please?
Yes, certainly, Chair Aspen, and through you, Mayor McGarvey. Absolutely. We absolutely value skilled trades, and they will for sure be a part of the new build. It's premature for us at this point to share this with you. However, I would invite all of you to attend the community presentation on June the 8th at 7 p.m. The architect is going to show an early plan of the school, and will likely show some of the area of the school where those spaces will be. And that's all I'm going to say about it at this moment, just because we're still in the planning stages of the floor plans of the school. But please be rest assured, skilled trades will absolutely be a part of the new JK-12 build.
That's good. That's good to hear, because I know when I went to Parry Sound High School, there were a number of skilled trades that could be developed at that time with people. And from then until now, I mean, there has been quite a decline. So I am hoping that this is a priority, because it's really important for our future. So the other question I had is basically we're going from between the three schools, what, 4 or 5 gymnasiums to what, 1? Is that gymnasium going to be big enough that it's going to be able to be split in half and accommodate 2 different classes, or how is this going to work? Because certainly exercise, fitness is extremely important, and we're going to be accommodating from JK to grade 12, and there are parents that want to know how this is going to work.
Well, Your Worship, the short answer to that is scheduling. This is a phenomenon that's happening throughout the province. There's less and less kids, there's less and less resources. And part of this whole exercise is to combine resources so kids get the maximum in terms of education. And the ministry dictates the footprint these days, and we have to live within that footprint. But I'll let Superintendent Smiley give you more of the detail on that particular question.
Thank you, Chair Aspin, and again, through you, Mayor McGarvey. Absolutely, it is very, very important for our students to have adequate gym space for their physical activity, and there is going to be adequate gym space at the new JK-12 build. And I know that the architects will probably share some of those details with you. We're looking at space that I think that you would be quite pleased with.
Okay. Now, the other, I think this is probably my last question, and I'll turn it over to other council members to ask, but apparently there were pods that were approved at the last board meeting, some educational pods. Is the idea that they're only going to be used during construction, and will they be removed after construction?
Well, the short answer to that question, Your Worship, is that the Ministry of Education encourages new builds to include edupods these days. The fact of the matter is, the phenomena of declining enrollment continues and continues to be very significant. So what, in fact, the ministry does is they ask you to include in your build edupods. In this case, I believe there's 6 of them. There's 4 secondary and 2 elementary. What happens is 5 or 6 years down the path, decline in enrollment is such that those edupods will no longer be required. So they will be removed from the school. They're also edupods, they're not portables. Portables, the public don't like portables because, you know, they're standalone and there's problems in the winter and they're divorced from the school. These edupods are built right into the school as part of the school. As declining enrollment goes down and you look at the figures, 5-10 years down the road, drastically less than it is today, these edupods will be removed. Superintendent Smiley, do you have any further detail on that?
Yes, Chair Aspen, and thank you. I can elaborate a little bit on that. You may recall from the presentation that you just listened to that I was referring to the hex pods that have been designed by the Venton Group, and that across Ontario, the Ministry of Education, it's common practice in areas where there is declining enrollment to introduce something along this line for student use. And you know, gone are the days where we have those military style portables. We now have, you know, an opportunity to build something that will be stunningly beautiful for our kids to learn and grow in. And you'll also recall, if it's something that you would you know, like to have a look at, is that the Venton Group, there was a lengthy article that was published in Building Magazine in August 2020.
It's significant to note as well, Mayor McGarvey, that the Venton Group are among the leaders in architects in Ontario in the development and use of these edupods. Mm-hmm. They have designed, as I say, edupods that are a part of literally a part of the building when the building first opens, and then they're withdrawn as declining enrollment takes effect.
And if I could just jump in and continue a little bit, Mayor McGarvey, I know that you had expressed in another question a concern about enrollment increasing over the next several years. And certainly if that were to happen, I mean, there's many ways that something like that could be handled. If there happened to be an increase, a large increase in enrollment in a certain area that would warrant the build of a new school, that would, be something that that we would certainly speak to the ministry about. If we had a sudden increase that was scattered from all over the region, we could perhaps have a chat with the ministry about submitting a business case to do an addition on the existing school. I mean, we're building for what we know, and until that changes, or unless that changes, we're going to continue on the path that we are on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the answers and answering the questions. I'm going to turn this over to council now because I know some of them have questions as well. But I just want to reiterate that for me, this is a build. It's a major build in our community, and that it's always important for me to make sure that the residents of our community, and now the new student residents that are going to come in from McDougall, are well served now and into the future. So that's where I certainly come from. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have about 4 quick points to make. One question, I've heard reference to ARC. What is ARC or an ARC? Could someone tell me?
Director Miles, could you respond to that, please?
Certainly, thank you. And through the mayor, yes, the ARC is it stands for the Pupil Accommodation Review. What it is when we go through anytime, any board in the province that is looking at excess capacity and looking at consolidating schools, closing schools, building schools, must go through a formal process, which is called the ARC. And it is to consider all the variables, the demographics, the enrollment moving out into the future, the age of the building, the cost to continue with that building functioning, et cetera, et cetera. So all these factors must be put through a very formal process that includes community engagement, community outreach, community consultation, et cetera, et cetera. And that is the process that we did go through in the past for this build. Thank you for the question.
Okay, so another question then, in terms of access, I would imagine that all of the accessibility enhancements will be there. Will it be an elevator lift in the new building?
What I can say is we do have to obviously comply. The question, I will pass it over to Superintendent.
Thank you. I'm hoping that you can hear. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yes, I believe that all of the entire school will be accessible to 2025 standards, and that does include a lift up to the second floor.
Cool. So I wanted to make a comment, like we're all, and I get it that you need a plan that you can work with now. I would be very cautious, as Mayor McGarvey has commented on the idea in this area of declining enrollment. You know, we live in a very unique area in which I believe someday this will be the new Muskoka, if not already. We've had a lot of people who are moving up here simply because of COVID. We have people that are retiring and turning their residence into or their cottages into residence. And with the internet, and fiber optics, I think we live in a particular unique situation in which we could and should expect enrollment to remain steady. So I would be very concerned about jumping to any conclusion that, you know, the enrollment is going to go down. I'm just putting that out there. And finally, we've been talking about whether or not schools with JK to grade 12 work. Is it possible that some sort of a consortium from Parry Sound, which may include a couple of counselors, would have an opportunity to take a walking tour of one of these high schools, such as in North Bay, the one you spoke of, where in fact you say this model is working? And those are my questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Councillor McCann, in reference to your first question, I mean, I was a councillor for 18 years in City North Bay. We all want our town to grow. There's no question. And certainly COVID has changed things. There is an out migration from the GTA, from the Southern Ontario areas north. Whether that will continue, we don't know. But as Superintendent Smiley indicated, you know, there's flexibility built into this system. We can change according to the demographics. Right now, and for the foreseeable number of years, according to the demographics we have, it looks like declining enrollment will continue. If that changes because of COVID or other factors, you know, you may have a car plant, or may have some big institution land in Parry Sound, then we have the flexibility. As for your second question, we'd be delighted to host, you know, counselors, and the mayor, and council, whatever, to come to North Bay and tour a few of our combined schools.
I think
it's a phenomena that you can understand. Parents have a fear, especially the parents in the lower grades.
Well, I think that's wonderful. I, for one, have been skeptical of putting all of the kids together, and you hear stories that are good and bad. So I would love to have an opportunity, hopefully COVID behind us, but even still, it would be super before our school is built, to have an opportunity to see how these other schools are functioning with that model in place. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. With it, Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. One, we've heard the concerns tonight about the possibility that there will be an increase of students, and therefore the plan that was developed will probably need to be rejigged. How I'm looking at it, though, and I think that's quite possible what is being questioned here, but I'm wondering, as I just heard a moment ago, how the ministry is flexible. Has there ever been any schools where they looked at a 2-shift system rather than just building a bigger school because you have more students? Has that ever been examined or tried in the province of Ontario? That's my first question.
Director Miles or Superintendent Smiley, do you have any information on that?
I just didn't quite get the concept of the question. Could that be repeated, please? I might have missed a piece, or
certainly
something about it. Sorry,
yes,
thank you.
in some countries where I've traveled, rather than keep building a bigger school because there's more students, they have students attend on shifts. So say one shift, these students started at 7:30 and they went to 2 p.m. And then the next shift of students went from 2 p.m. to whatever the ending time is, 7 o'clock. Has something like that, any sort of shifts, that idea ever been tried in the province of Ontario rather than just building bigger and bigger when there is an influx of students? That's my first question. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. What I can say is, to my knowledge, I don't know of any schools in the province that have, or the ministry making any decisions that would look at that concept, to my knowledge, outside of emergency situations. I know that schools, when they run into some kind of flood damage or fire damage, they will do shifts in order to get to the next stage as a temporary measure. I do not know of any permanent builds that they looked at that way, but I may turn it over to Superintendent Smiley again. She might have some more information if that be the will of the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just jump on what Director Miles had said. I was going to say the same thing. We've certainly seen, in North Bay schools back in the, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s, where there was an emergency situation and the two high schools had to amalgamate for close to a year, and they did exactly what you had referred to, Councillor Keith. And but it's not something that the ministry supports as a new build. But certainly, that we have had experience with situations like that, and they do occur from time to time throughout the province. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do understand that some people in the province of Ontario some years ago did have that experience, but in any event, ministry and their viewpoints about things over years, I'm sure changed like anything else. Moving on to my second question is, I think this COVID experience has shown us, whether all people agree or not, that at least to some extent, learning with the technology we have now from home is a possibility, at least for some subjects. And therefore, I'm wondering, with the plans that we have in place now, is there or was there a design that also includes in the event you needed to use more technology for whatever reason, because there's always a possibility somewhere down the road there would be another situation. I'm not trying to be alarmist, I'm looking at being proactive. So therefore, is there any design in the shape of the rooms or technology that is going to be included in this plan? So in the event more learning from home became necessary, it would be possible with this new build. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keith. Superintendent Smiley, could you respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you. Certainly, and the technology that is being set up in the new build will certainly be state of the art in comparison with those heavy walls now that we have difficulty sometimes getting some kind of connectivity through. So I mean, that right there is going to be one of the bonuses of having something that is brand new, is that it will be far more efficient than what we currently have. But yes, you're absolutely right. This year has shown us, some silver linings with COVID. And our schools, as you are well aware, are closed right now to our students. And we have our students who are engaged in at-home learning. And we are also right now in the process of looking at whether or not there is interest across the board to have a virtual school moving forward. And that is something that that we may or may not move forward with in the future, depending on what the interest is. But going back to our concerns about declining enrollment, I mean, this is something that if we were to have virtual schools could potentially take some of the pressure off if we did have a huge influx of young students that came to us from, some of the more densely populated areas. So there's more than one way to look at solutions to this, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from any council member? Councillor Backman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, in regards to the pods, in the presentation, they were shown as single entities, but I also heard that they're going to be attached to the school. Can you please clarify the design of those and how they're associated, that they'll be fixed with the school versus individual?
Lieutenant Smiley, could you respond to that, please?
Certainly, Chair Aspin, and through you, Mayor McGarvey. Yes, so we do know that we can have 6 hex pods, and that they, as I had mentioned in the presentation, that they are all in a honeycomb shape with 120-degree corners in the walls of the hex pod. What hasn't been decided is the location of, where they will be placed on our 18+ acres that we have for the new school site. So they're certainly, when we are looking at the placement, something that we would want to consider is washrooms, and the possibility of having washrooms in the hex pods, washrooms in very close proximity to where the students who will be using the hex pods will be located. So those are all concerns that we would be considering. Thank you.
Okay.
So just as a follow-up, I heard in the presentation that, it was important that having the grade 12 through K structure was to build bonds, but yet we're already now putting our children into individual units away from their brothers and sisters, and that engagement is lost. And
Well, I'd say she's Councillor Bachman. Maybe try turning your camera off and
I understand.
try it now.
Hello?
We couldn't hear what you said. You
Apologies
froze.
for that. Thank you. I'll just turn my camera off and that may change.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just I understand that the remote learning aspect may cause that decline, but I do, I do have concerns, especially if, I don't know, based on the comments that were made, that washrooms would be close nearby. Would then students have to travel outside during weathered conditions to go to the washroom? Can you elaborate on that?
Superintendent Smiley, can you comment on that, please?
Certainly, I can comment on that, Chair Aspin, and through you, Mayor McGarvey. We're really touching into the design process and considerations that have to be taken into account. And certainly we are well aware of that being a potential issue, and certainly wherever we land with the design, that need will be accommodated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCann, and then I think we're gonna, unless there's another burning question, we'll wrap up.
Well, just a very quick one, and it just occurred to me, I wondered when the tenders go out for construction, can we expect any local companies to have an opportunity to work in this build? I mean, the idea of how tenders work notwithstanding.
Well, Councillor McCann, we have an open tender process, so if there are any local companies that qualify, they'll be more than welcome to apply.
So the need to just pay attention then is the advice of the day then, right?
And when we tender it, it'll be widely advertised and widely known. So just as a wrap, Mayor McGarvey,
Yep.
I'd like to take this occasion to remind everybody that we're going to, on the website, we're going to have an invitation for feedback and ask further questions at any time. And I know you're very busy. I've seen your agenda tonight, and I know how much work you counselors do. So on behalf of our team, let me express our sincere gratitude for allowing us to come to you tonight and present what our new school is going to be like. We look forward to celebrating this wonderful education facility with you when it opens. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I realize this probably went on longer than what it should, but as I said, you know, everyone is very curious as to how things are going, and this is very important for the community, not just for now, but for the future as well, as I've said before. So I want to thank you all for being here, and appreciate being here tonight to make the deputation and answer questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our final deputation for tonight is Chair Alicia Clark, Absolutely Georgian Bay. There you are.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, your mayor, your worship mayor, and council. I'm here tonight we have an ask on behalf of Absolutely Georgian Bay for funds from the town of Parry Sound, and I have a short presentation for you and then open for questions. So just screen share. Is that work coming through okay for everyone?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So Absolutely Georgian Bay is a project that we've been working on for just over a year now. It's a concept that was developed years ago between Dr. Becky Pollock and I at the Biosphere and a few other local business owners in town. So the Absolutely Georgian Bay mission is to develop, promote, and sell exceptional and sustainable tourism experiences, packages, and events in the Georgian Bay Biosphere region through a member-owned cooperative of businesses and stakeholders who are passionate about the region and the experiences that they offer. The vision is to build a vibrant tourism community and thriving sustainable economy in the Georgian Bay Biosphere. The goals for the Absolutely Georgian Bay project were to enhance capacity for sustainable tourism in a region, and specifically outdoor tourism, if possible, create a framework in which tourism providers, guides, and supporters could plug in, create a recognizable brand for sustainable tourism in the Georgian Bay Biosphere, build a platform where visitors and locals can plan and purchase tourism experiences, and to develop a business model that's sustainable and inclusive. We have a few key partners. So some of these are founding business members who have been working on this project for the past few months, as well as community partners. Step one for the project was to build the brand. So to come at this with a brand and really a presence. What we're hoping to do with Absolutely Georgian Bay is to promote sustainable outdoor adventure-based tourism in the area. That's really what we were focusing on. The second part was to build a platform. So we've been working in the background for quite some time now, building a two-sided platform, one side where customers, so tourists and locals, could actually book experiences, and then the second side, which is a member-facing side, where members, so businesses that have tourism products, can plug in and put their products up to be sold on the customer-facing platform. Just so you know, those platforms are actually live now, both of them. They're absolutelygeorgianbay.com, which is the customer side, and absolutelygeorgianbay.info, which is the member side. Step 3 was to develop a business structure. So that went hand in hand with step 2, and we've been working on this for quite some time. We've settled on a cooperative business structure. Step 4, which is the phase we're in now, is to launch and grow Absolutely Georgian Bay. Obviously, the last few months have been challenging for everyone. This has been a little bit challenging for this project as well. We've navigated all of those challenges really well as a group and as a board. It's a tough year to launch something like this with a whole pile of challenges around every turn. But I'm really proud of the work we've done so far, and actually how we've been able to overcome a lot of challenges in the past few months, despite there being plenty. So we settled on a cooperative model. So just so everyone is aware, the cooperative business model is now an incorporated, not-for-profit cooperative. So Absolutely Georgian Bay is incorporated, and that has all been set up with an elected board of directors. We're a tourism business owned and operated cooperative. So regional tourism providers and tourism stakeholders can join as members. The economic and social benefits of Absolutely Georgian Bay will stay in the community where it was established. So there's a few ways people can participate in Absolutely Georgian Bay. I know this was asked earlier. It is open to anyone to become a member through different membership categories. So tourism experience providers are those that actually have products that are able to sell on the platform. So those would be businesses like the Island Queen Cruise, the Georgian Bay Biosphere, or culinary partners like Trestle Brewing. There's also an opportunity for advertising partners, so businesses that would like to advertise with Absolutely Georgian Bay and benefit from the co-marketing side of things, but also just to be involved in this initiative. For tourism individuals, so those that support and want to be involved in tourism, but don't necessarily at this point own a tourism business. And then tourism supporters, so including municipalities, agencies, and First Nations. Absolutely Georgian Bay is asking the town of Parry Sound to support tourism in 2 ways. A tourism supporter membership, which is a $500 membership, and that goes towards our basically our operations cost. So helping to secure staffing when we need staffing support, as a lot of the work is also done by volunteers in the background, and then just running the running of the platform. We're also looking for a marketing contribution, so up to $4,500. That's broken down here in the next slide for you. So this is a marketing partnership, and this is really to help the group get Absolutely Georgian Bay up and running in the next year. So the marketing partnership would cover $2,000 of social media campaigns over 4 seasons, and that would include different businesses within the Parry Sound area, or specific activities in Parry Sound that are offered by the town of Parry Sound. So specific Stocky Center activities, Bobby Orr Hall of Fame activities, things like that. Another $1,000 to promote attractions specifically, so events and trails in Parry Sound. That money would be spent promoting the specific events that you have listed on the Absolutely Georgian Bay website. $1,000 that would be put in conjunction with money that Absolutely Georgian Bay has to do photography and videography content for new experiences. This is something that in the last year, Absolutely Georgian Bay has done a lot of work on, and you'll see the images in this presentation are beautiful, they're stunning, they're really high quality images that this area was in a lot of cases lacking for tourism products. So that's something we feel is really important for marketing the area. And $500 for culinary and cultural promotion. So markets, tastings, tours, and things like that. So this just outlines where Absolute Georgian Bay is and where we're going. Obviously, as I mentioned, this was our founding year and a difficult year to navigate as a founding year for a tourism startup business. The Georgian Bay Biosphere plays a huge part in Absolutely Georgian Bay. They're a main partner. We work with them very, very closely for capacity building and as an advisory role. So Absolutely Georgian Bay is independent of the Biosphere. However, they are hugely supportive of the project and also there to assist us along the way, and they have been from the very beginning. We're working with James Cox and the West Parry Sound Economic Development, collaborative opportunities, marketing partnership opportunities, so available through RTO, OTMPC, and Indigenous Tourism Ontario. In the past, we have had talks with the RTO. Their challenges in dealing with and in working with the Parry Sound area is that everything's very fragmented. So it's difficult for a number of businesses to get together and work with RTO 12 and facilitate success with RTO 12. So we do see Absolutely Georgian Bay as a huge opportunity to be able to do that. Our focus, like I said, is outdoor adventure-based tourism, and just like any group will focus on what they do and what they do best. I think our area really does have an abundance of amazing outdoor opportunities, and that really is a huge highlight for this area. It's also what sets us apart from many other Ontario regions and many other Ontario regions that are very, very close by. Tourism Economic Development and Recovery Fund application, that is pending. So that has been drafted with the partnership with the Biosphere. So that's pending approval. Federal tourism opportunities in development as well, again, in partnership with the Biosphere, and Destination Canada opportunities in discussion. So again, in close partnership with the Biosphere for all of those opportunities. Dr. Becky Pollock is also on this call. So if we have questions related to any of those up and coming funding opportunities, she would be the best one to direct to for those. Are there any questions?
Thanks,
I'm
Alicia.
sure there are.
Yeah, there probably
Thank you
are.
very much.
What grants have you received to date?
Let me just on screen share. So to date, we have received FedNor funding, and that funding was approved just over 12 months ago. It was approved for in conjunction with the Biosphere, and that was approved actually for staffing and for capacity building for tourism in the area. So that funding went to a staff which did a lot of the background work for Absolutely Georgian Bay, along with an advisory board. An advisory group. We were at that point not a full board, but an advisory group, which included a lot of the businesses that were listed on that slide. So to date, that's the only funding that has been the only grants that we have received.
Can you say what kind of dollar value that was, or?
Becky is on this call, and she would have those figures for us. I don't know if someone can turn her. Oh, sorry, I apologize. She might be. So she doesn't have access. She was not granted access to the meeting.
Okay.
But she can answer any of these questions in writing to council.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Any other questions from council members? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So help me understand here. So, and thank you for your presentation tonight. I'm trying to see things on a very much larger scale. I watched your video, the Absolute Georgian Bay video. I saw a few brands that were listed that were part of that video. I guess I'm trying to get a grasp on in the greater realm of things. Who are we? I mean, I get it, the tourism is good for the whole area. When one grows, we all grow. I guess I'm wondering how large of the scope or how large of the realm of the beneficiaries are we looking at here when it's all said and done?
Yeah.
Is that clear enough?
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. So I can speak to that. So one of the issues that was identified at the start of this project was that we do have a massive potential for outdoor experience tourism, which is a huge sector in tourism right now. The issue in our area is actually largely associated with capacity. So the actual amount of businesses that are offering tourism products, it is just not quite there. So what we had identified that as an issue. And what we're hoping to do with Absolutely Georgian Bay is to build a platform and build a group that makes it easy for new businesses to come in and get started. So you'll see in the video, I mean, there aren't really a ton of businesses, and I totally understand that are profiled there. And what we wanted to do was highlight the ones that are in the area that are succeeding in outdoor adventure and sustainable ecotourism, highlight those that are succeeding, and really make an opportunity available for those that do want to come in and create sailing opportunities, kayaking opportunities, in addition to what's already existing, cycling opportunities, again, in addition to what's existing, boat tours, fishing charters, things like that. So that's what that's a hope that we have for the project, is really to build a platform and to build kind of a jumping off point for new businesses to come in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So you talk about the biosphere. Do you have an outline or plan of a catchment area? Like, do you go as far up as Britt and down to Georgian Bay Township? Is that your catchment area that you're trying to promote, or is it larger or smaller than that?
Yeah, so the catchment area is the biosphere region, so south to Honey Harbor and north to the French River, and then basically this side of Highway 11. So that's the area that we're working with. That's what has been outlined in our planning for the area that Absolutely Georgian Bay will cover. Now, that being said, we're a small group that's just starting to build, and our goal is always to build with what we have, what we know, what we do well, and build up from there. So the businesses that have started this project, that have been at the table from the very beginning, are Parry Sound businesses for the most part. There have been invitations out to other businesses for sure, and there are some. However, the majority of it right now is Parry Sound focus, but the larger area is the biosphere region.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Councillor Backman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much, Alicia, for coming tonight and speaking about tourism. I think you've identified that in your letter, that there is obviously a gap in our region, and that has been consistent for many years. You know, one thing, I know council may not know this, but both Alicia and I sat on a tourism committee a couple of years ago with Lynn Middaugh through REDAC, and I think it was really both in the hope of the vision that Alicia, Dr. Pollock, and others had to really see tourism be part of an economic part under the economic umbrella, and really moving some of the plans that have been previously invested in by the town of Parry Sound, obviously, and regional partners through our West Parry Sound Economic Development Collaborative. And, you know, that's kind of taken its toll. And I think, you know, as a result, we've kind of gone in to do things individually, because we don't have that full collaborative and that priority for tourism under that. And I really do hope to see that that changes. I think we are at a time when the tourism industry has been devastated by the effects of COVID-19, and really the roles of all level of government and support entities become vital to the success of these individual businesses. In Parry Sound in particular, where tourism is an integral part of the local economy. And I really know that the value of supporting these initiatives by that you are putting forth before us this evening, is imperative. Marketing is not cheap. And I actually remember Dr. Pollock saying that repeatedly, and I understand how it is important for us, but not only for Parry Sound to support these types of tourism initiatives, but really to develop a plan for ourselves so that we know where and how entities like yourself could really benefit us. Obviously, we have the Stocky Center. We have no marketing plan. We have the Bobby Orr, Hall of Fame. It's no marketing plan. These are things I'd like to really see, be developed sooner than later, so that we can really grow and maximize the return on investment that we're making. I totally understand that, the quality of product that you are producing is, I'm very pleased with it. I know Councillor Keith has commented with the Biosphere's photography in the past presentation. And again, what I see here and what I really like to hear this evening was that it wasn't just to market your own experiences, but it was to really help develop experiences. Because when we look at that business retention in our community, I mean, we talk about investing into our industrial parks, but if we added, one business to every contractor or one business to every tourism operator, we have 30 jobs right there. That will not take years to find millions of dollars to invest facilities in our industrial park. So I really recognize what you're doing, and I know the hard work that you've gone through. And I think it's really great, that the town has made a commitment to the Amazing Places platform, which, I know the Biosphere has put a lot of work into acquiring those dollars to promote that, which we've committed to. And I think that, I would be, in support at a minimum of your $500 partnership. Mr. Harris had stated in our questions to staff that that was, I guess, something on the table. I do see with the other ask that you're putting forth, I think that, the town needs to consider, but also not just the town, but at a regional level. And we have to identify as moving forward with our West Parry Sound Collaborative, where our actual regional marketing plan has, something we've supported and approved, how, it ties into that, and, how we can really leverage that relationship with the collaborative to go after tourism dollars. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity that we can go after those tourism dollars and really not take it out of the public purse, so to say, of our budgets. So, I think that in letters of support or in those capacities, we need to be able to offer that to the different entities that are, and hopefully, I think it's evident we're not utilizing the RTO in the best of our capacity. I know the town hasn't. I mean, we have, and I understand in our cruise tourism and that, but when we look at the partnership, over the years, I think across West Parry Sound, there are very few. And I'm sure if you were looking at the different pillars under the RTO, we would really recognize that we could probably, by working together, get a lot more of those dollars over to our park, because I think Councillor Borneman has noted to this, and I know myself, that the competition, is really going to be, for that stay local for the next 3 years at least. People are going to be in our backyard. We need experiences for them. We need sustainable an opportunity for
It froze up again, Councillor Backman.
and so to have your presentation, and I say
Are we good?
did you catch that?
No.
No. Oh.
You were frozen.
Hopefully not for the entire hour. Anyway, keep up the good work, Alicia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It has been it's been a challenging project. We kind of started with a concept and an idea, and it's evolved through a lot of meetings, a lot of collaborative meetings with a number of different businesses, different people, different groups, to come to where we are now. And I do want to thank and recognize the group that's been working behind the scenes on this. It is I'm merely just the face of it, and I'm at the meetings as well. But there's a huge group of people in the community and beyond that have been working on this for over a year now. So thanks, Vanessa.
Good. Councillor Borneman's got a question.
Actually, my question, I think, is for Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, does this request need, do you need further time to assess the paperwork and documents that you referred to earlier, or can this be added to this evening's agenda for council's consideration?
Through the chair, I think from my review of what's been submitted this evening, and we've had that for a few days, as well as review of the corporate documents. I think it's, the town would be supporting a business, nonprofit business that is, not a closed shop, if you like. It's open to all membership. So that would be the only comment. The other, the question was asked earlier about what's been in our budget. The request that I was aware of originally was $500, and staff could, I think there is some monies that perhaps for donations that haven't been earmarked to particular projects at this point. I can't comment if in terms of the larger request for $4,500.
Maybe a suggestion is, why don't we you look at it over the next week or so and bring it to the next council meeting with a recommendation. So if council's good with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm seeing heads nod. So, okay, that's good.
Just one follow-up, Mr.
Yep.
Mayor, please.
Yep.
Alicia, there are people sitting at home maybe having trouble sleeping, I'm not sure, watching this, and they decide that they want to join this consortium. How do they go about doing so?
Yeah, so Absolutely Georgian Bay website is up and running as absolutelygeorgianbay.com. And on there's an email address link to get in touch with us. So that would be the best way for now. And then we will follow up with them in a day or two.
Okay.
Thanks.
We're good. Okay, Alicia.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we're going to go to reports. Councillor Borneman.
I'm just wondering if, in view of the hour, we've got a fairly lengthy agenda, if maybe we could skip reports and double up next time around.
We can do that. There is one thing that I did want to, is everyone good with that?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, all right. There is one thing that I did want to get out there right now, and there will be a link on our website, but municipalities across the District of Parry Sound have partnered with Labor Market Group and the Parry Sound YMCA Employment and Learning Services to launch a district-wide transportation needs study, which will gather information regarding the transportation needs of residents throughout the district. The district-wide research initiative will seek input from 42,000 residents residing within more than 30 municipalities and 7 First Nations communities. So again, the link will be on our Town of Parry Sound website, along with, I'm sure, the other municipalities' websites. But please go and fill out the survey and share your thoughts on transportation. So we will leave it at that, and then everybody can have their add this to their next meeting. Okay, so first item comes forward from closed. Item 7.1, moved by Councillor Burden, seconded by Councillor McCann, that the CAO is hereby directed on behalf of the town's negotiating team to sign with CUPE a renewed collective agreement based on the memorandum of agreement dated May 20th, 2021, as a result of the 2021 collective agreement negotiations. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No, it's carried. Moved by Councillor Horn, seconded by Councillor Keith, that Council accepts the Integrity Commissioner's report for 2020 as follows. 1, dated complaint which was dismissed, and 2, requests for advice. Any questions, comments? Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? Nope, that's carried. Item 9.4.1, moved by Councillor Burden, seconded by Councillor Borneman, that Council of the Town of Parry Sound recommends approval of B17/2021 PS-Hall Quarries Road. Discussion? Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No, that's carried. Item 9.4.2, moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Burden, that the Council of the Town of Parry Sound recommends approval of a decision on consent application B20/2021 PS Jackson 53 Isabella Street be approved, subject to that the resultant lot layout ensures all zoning bylaw requirements are satisfied or relief from the zoning bylaw be obtained. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
Yes, could we get Mr. LG to tell for the public's benefit what this is about?
Certainly, through your worship, but this is a pretty simple lot addition application. So if you go to page 5 of my report, there's a lot in the back. It's on the northeast side of the property with a garage that will be cut from 57 Isabella Street and added to 55. Makes sense. The driveway is right next to the benefiting lands, and since the garage is already behind that house, it actually tends to flow with the property a little bit better.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it looked rather disjointed there, so hopefully this remedies that.
Yeah. Anything further? Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? Nope. Okay, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Horn and seconded by Councillor Keith, that Council Town of Parry Sound authorize the issuance of a business license to DeSalvo's Curbside Cucina food truck for the operation of mobile food services on the leased federal property at the town dock. Any discussion? No. Anyone opposed to this resolution? No, that's carried then. Moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Keith. Whereas the federal government has passed a motion to adopt 988 as a national 3-digit suicide and crisis hotline. And whereas the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has increased the demand for suicide prevention services by 200%, and whereas existing suicide prevention hotlines require the user to remember a 10-digit number and go through directories or be placed on hold, and whereas in 2022, the United States will have in place a national 988 crisis hotline, and whereas the town of Parry Sound recognizes that this is a significant and important initiative to ensure critical barriers are removed to those in crisis and seeking help. Now therefore be it resolved, the town of Parry Sound endorses this 988 crisis line initiative, and that staff be directed to send a letter indicating such support to our local member of parliament, members of the Legislative Assembly, Federal Minister of Health, and the CRTC, and local area municipalities to indicate our support. Any discussion? Councillor McCann?
Yes, thank you. I asked for this to be brought forward. And I read something interesting today from the Crises Service Canada website, and it got me thinking, and it's interesting how we use words and terminology. You know, we use social distancing and our heart's in the right place when we do it, but it's more about physical distancing. And I'll just read you this paragraph today. It makes you think. Indeed, what people need most right now is social connection, because real connection is essential to our mental health. Studies have shown that social networks, which provide emotional support, companionship, and opportunities for meaningful social engagement, have a beneficial effect on mental health outcomes, stress reactions, psychological well-being, and self-esteem. People with weak or few social connections, on the other hand, are at a higher risk of anxiety, depression, antisocial behavior, and suicidal behaviors. So that's something to think about, and try to encourage people to think that there are people out there. There is a social connection for you. And having a 3-digit phone number to call that hotline, a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline, is very, very important. If you know somebody that needs help, or if you need help yourself in the meantime, you can certainly call the National Crises Hotline. And I won't mention the number here because it's long and it defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do, but you can certainly look it up on the internet, and this would make it quicker. So I certainly support this. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a worthwhile initiative for sure. Anything further? Nope. Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? It's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Burton. Whereas the town is located at the heart of Georgian Bay Biosphere, and whereas the Georgian Bay Biosphere is a region of global ecological significance that has an ongoing commitment to the United States and sustainability, and whereas the environmental stewardship and protection and strategic priorities for the town, and whereas access to and the use of the waterfront is integral to the town's identity, and whereas the town has a diverse and active waterfront user and business community. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare a report and recommendation on the value of an ad hoc waterfront advisory committee to advise on matters relating to environmental stewardship, beautification, and creating a people gathering place. And further, that subject to a recommended establishment of such a committee, staff prepare recommended terms of reference, including committee composition, recruitment, the area to be defined as waterfront, and other details as appropriate. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, yourself and along with Bob Corrigan and Bob Boland and myself met on the Corrigan boat, the Cambrian, Friday morning, May 14th, to talk about the idea of revitalizing the Waterfront Advisory Committee to move forward. And there's a couple of objectives that were talked about. One was to identify maintenance required and remedial action needed to mitigate any particular areas that pose risks right now, and also to enhance the structures that need a little TLC. And we also talked about examining opportunities to improve the existing waterfront environment and facilities or services without breaking the bank. And so although we fall short of calling ourselves a development committee, I certainly look at this as an opportunity to provide some sort of advancement in moving forward as we try to identify. And there are people who were before and would be interested again in sitting on this committee who have expertise in terms of what it's all about there out on the water, and what the oceans and forestry regulations are all about, and these are people that know what they're talking about. And so I would advocate that we move forward with this and ask staff to come back with some paperwork on putting this together.
I agree. Any further discussion on this? No? Anyone opposed to this resolution? I don't see anyone opposed, so that's good.
Okay.
Carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 953, moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Burden. Whereas Ontario's Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission's final report has now okay. All right. I thought I'd lost everybody there for a second. My screen went to another totally other screen. Whereas Ontario's Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission's final report has now been delivered, and health system leaders in West Parry Sound want to be prepared for the changes that are expected to come. And whereas health authorities of the West Parry Sound District are working together, including the boards of the West Parry Sound Health Center, Lakeland Long-Term Care, and Belvedere Heights Long-Term Care, with a vision to provide the best possible solution to long-term care and health care for the seniors in our community. And whereas among considerations being proposed is a new model of healthcare, a campus of care, which essentially provides a continuum of care for the elderly to age in place, including, where appropriate, their own apartments or other independent or assisted living arrangements, as well as long-term care, all affiliated with and in proximity to local primary health care and wellness services. And whereas it also proposed that the community of seniors continuing to live at home be supported by our vision of virtual care, which would include professional home-based health and wellness care supported by high-speed internet services. Therefore, be it resolved, the town of Parry Sound supports these initiatives and the collaborative efforts between the province of Ontario and the local stakeholders to develop innovative and improved care for the seniors in our communities. Councillor Borneman.
So I've been talking about this for a little bit. Recently, the ministry allotted West Parry Sound an additional 24 beds. The most recent numbers provided some time ago by the Northeast Lynn said that the absolute bare minimum was 160 bed growth in seniors accommodations in our area. Belvedere is operated largely by the ministry, but it's a creation of the seven West Parry Sound municipalities plus McMurtry Monteith. In order to have these discussions with the province, we need concurrence from the municipalities that this is a direction that they believe that we should be pursuing. So this is why this is on the agenda tonight. It will allow this local partnership of the West Parry Sound Health Center, Lakeland, and Belvedere to pursue this with the province from the perspective of what may be possible down the road, and to pursue funding from them in order to make that possible.
Anything further on this one? No? Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? No, okay, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Bachmann and seconded by Councillor McCann that in response to Park Trail Association's request, Council of the Town of Parry Sound is hereby authorized the drafting of a letter of support to Park Trail Association's grant application. Discussion? Councillor Borneman, then Councillor Keith. Oh. No? Okay,
I'm good, sorry.
you're good? Okay, Councillor Keith?
I'm not so good, I guess. I'm wondering two questions. In the support of the letter that is being requested here, are we making any other commitment? And I'm wondering, are we privy to know how much this grant application is for?
I could speak to that. I just didn't catch all of your question, Councillor Keith.
Yes, the first part is, are we making any further commitment from the town when we support a letter, we write a letter supporting Park Trail Association's request grant application? So are we making any other commitment besides supporting that? And number two is, are we privy to the knowledge of what the amount would be for the grant application? Thank you.
Yes, no, the town of Parry Sound is just would be writing a letter of support, supporting the project for Park to Park Trail. The project will be focused on getting dollars for bridge work. Right now we are looking at, we put out a tender for a bridge and quotes came back between $400,000 and $700,000. So we would be asking in this grant application for as much as possible, obviously, but anywhere between $75,000 to $200,000. Obviously, these grants need matching dollars. We are working with other partners to acquire those matching dollars because we know that the town of Parry Sound has committed the $6,000 solely in the budget that was approved this year.
Okay, good. Councillor McCann?
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Beckman, you mentioned bridge work. It's a lot of money. Are you talking a number of bridges that each require some maintenance, or is there one big project that you're looking at?
Well, I wish it was only one, but we have many bridges along the Park to Park that do require, and I think a large portion is in the Seguin Township. I don't quote me, but I'm thinking like 18 bridges we may have. Obviously, this is in partnerships. A lot of the bridge applications and work is with the OFSC because the Park to Park Trail does become turnover to the OFC once it closes, come November and opens again in the spring. So it's integral that we have that partnership with the OFSC, which is, connected to the biggest funding source out there. So right now, the grant that we are applying for is the Trans-Canada Trail grant. And so Seguin, part of, there are two parts of the Park to Park Trail that are allocated and allocated as the Trans-Canada Trail. So we can, under that provision, we can apply for that specific grant.
Okay, thank you. I know from my time on the board, the bridges were always an issue. Bridges and turtles.
Are we good? Okay, anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No, no one's opposed. That's carried. Thank you. Okay. Item 10.3.1, moved by Councillor Burden, second by Councillor Borneman, that bylaw number 2021-7137, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Science North for the delivery of education-based youth camp programming, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Burden, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor Borneman?
I just want to congratulate Mr. Weiler. This sounds like a real good deal for
Yeah.
us and for younger folks in the area.
Yeah, it's good. Councillor Keith?
Yes, I just want a clarification. I did look at the agreement and it seemed like until the period of time when youth would be using it, the money isn't paid till that specific time. So in the event there was another wave or health concern, that would trump what is happening here. Would that be correct? Maybe Mr. Weiler could explain.
Sure, through your worship. Yeah, that is the case. We're at the mercy of the province and the provincial regulations. I brought before council a similar agreement with another nonprofit organization back in March. And our understanding at that time was that regardless of the provincial legislation, that camp would go forward. And then the province came down and shut down day camps right before April break. So that camp was actually canceled. But with the province or with the framework that's been laid out recently by the province, it looks like things will be good to go for July and for the other camp in August as well.
Okay, Councillor McCann?
Would the children need to register in advance? Where would they go and what kind of activities would they be involved with?
So pre-registration, through your worship, pre-registration would be required. And that would all be done through Science North, and you can get their website at sciencenorth.ca. And in terms of the actual curriculum of the course, I'm not sure about all the details, but I do know that it's science-based, and we're looking again at that age demographic of between about 6 and 12 years old.
Great, thank you.
Good. Anything further? Nope. Okay, anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? Nope, that's carried then. Moved by Councillor Backman and seconded by Councillor McCann, that bylaw number 2021-7138 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with the Minister of Transport regarding a rail safety improvement program be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Backman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. This is grant money that we have received for the St. Charles crossing area, which is greatly appreciated, and also commits the town to providing some dollars in this as well. And then we have a resolution following this particular one or whatever to catch CN and CP and ask them for some funding as well, since they are ultimately responsible for railway safety. Councillor Bachmann.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was wondering if maybe Mr. Cairns could just explain what exactly our goal is to achieve with this funding and what the project may entail.
Certainly, through you, Your Worship. So essentially, the funding is available to create new pedestrian crossing in the area, as well as provide improvements to the road approach on both sides. So Details of the project, we don't have those at this moment. So there's a number of options that we have available. Certainly the resolution that council will consider following this could certainly help us explore further enhancements to the safety in that area. So I should point out that this, we did indicate to them during this process that we would prefer the funding to flow over to construction year period, so 21-22 and then into 22-23, and that will allow us to take a very good look at proper engineering, perhaps several alternatives to be able to weigh those before moving forward to the construction phase of things. So while we don't have specifics, those are the main goals are to create a new pedestrian crossing, which doesn't really exist in that location, as well as in fixing or improving the road approaches on both sides.
Just as a follow-up, Mr. Cairns, would there then be a process through all of this for community consultation?
Through you, your worship, I'm not going to say no. I'm not sure how. What I can say is working within railway allowances can be fairly prescriptive. So we are going to have to assess what is acceptable from a Transport Canada and each of the railway, what their perspectives are in terms of what we are capable of doing. Perhaps if at that point we have more than one option, we could certainly look at some sort of public input process, but working within those areas is fairly prescriptive. So I'm not sure that opportunity will be there.
I always remember getting the comment a number of years ago from one of the railway lines, and that is that we were here first, and so you're passing over our property. Anyway, that was they're quite protective of their property. Was anything else, Councillor Backman, or was that good?
Well, just in, as a final comment in that, I understand that comment that they make, but I think community safety is first and foremost, and that's where we need to be that voice and continue fighting. And if there, we have EMO delegations coming up, maybe if there is something that we're not getting or we feel, then we need to take that to the Ministry of Transportation in that opportunity and be the voice for the community. Obviously, with the new school being built, it's critical. We've heard it, I think, loud and clear, and sad enough, we witnessed at the time of this funding available, sadly, a death in our community. So I just hope that we can be a strong voice and do this once and do it right.
Can you please, on that particular aspect, this is a totally different area compared to the other one. And this has been dealing with a situation we've been trying to deal with here for years because of two railway companies. Yep. And I will remind everyone here and the public, the ultimate organizations that are responsible for railway safety, and we can keep trying to, hound them to do it, are the railway lines. They are the ones that are responsible for railway safety. And our job is probably to remind them of that consistently and make sure that they know that. But we just have to remember that they are the ones that are responsible. And my comment before was because they figure that, well, they say they're there first, so we need to make sure we understand that, the public understands that, and all we can do is do exactly what we're doing, is try and get money and push them to try and make the changes that are done. And that's why we're having this follow-up resolution, is to ask them for funding as well, to try and get the best possible results that we can for the safety of our community. Councillor McCann.
Agreed.
I'm sorry. I'm okay. Thank you.
You okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Borneman has his hand up.
Mr. Cairns, I quite appreciate what you said about this being prescriptive, but I do think it would be advisable when a plan has been developed that there be some sort of public meeting to allow people to have a look at it, if nothing else. I'm not sure, as you say, that there'll be a whole lot of wiggle room, but I do think that the public deserve that much at least.
Councillor Keith.
Yeah, I'm just going to say briefly, it would seem to me one of the opportunities would be, once a plan is developed, that it be put at least on the town website. Maybe people can provide comments that way, because we still know we're in COVID-19 times, and there's no guarantee that the plan that is before us right now, the 3-stage plan, is going to be the 3-stage plan that happens for the rest of the year. So that would make it work. Thank you.
We'll work around whatever we can. Anything else on this particular one? No? Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No? That's good. Thank you. It's carried. So moved by Councillor Backman, seconded by Councillor McCann, whereas the town of Parry Sound has applied and been successful in obtaining funding support from the Transport Canada Rail Safety Improvement Program in the amount of up to $480,000 of the estimated project expenditures, and whereas the town of Parry Sound is committed to the estimated contribution of $270,000 as its portion of the estimated expenditures. And whereas the community desires to encourage safe and active transportation and physical activities by all, including the residents of new and previous residential development, and the anticipated increase in student traffic related to the proposed mega school at the corner of Isabella and Joseph Streets. And whereas both CN and CP railways traverse the municipality, creating challenges for road users and pedestrians to access various parts of the town, including the area of the Salt Dock and the nearby rugged trail and fitness trail to the waterfront. And whereas the grade elevation of both tracks contributes significantly to the costs associated with attempts to increase crossing safety, including installation of sidewalks and pedestrian access, in addition to making improvements to the road approaches. Therefore, be it resolved, the Council of the Town of Parry Sound hereby requests that both CN and CP Rail contribute financially to the rail safety improvements at the double crossings at Isabella Street. And I really hope that they put some significant dollars in there. Any discussion? No. Anyone opposed to the passing of that resolution? No, it's carried. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith, that bylaw number 2021-7139, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw for 9 and 11 Church Street, Matt Ryan for Oleg Gromov, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you. One quick question. In looking at the rendering of the building, I'm just wondering if Mr. Alge, through you, Your Worship, could just advise, is there a building downtown in Parry Sound for height that we could compare that to? So, because I understand, you know, it certainly is going to be an opportunity for the vision of the future for downtown Parry Sound. And the other part of that is there a plan to have an elevator in it? That's my two questions. Thank you.
Through your worship, in regards to the first question, the old hospital downtown, I believe, has some sections that are about 5 stories tall, especially if you include, I know at one point they had a bit of a penthouse type of thing on the top of it. I can't recall if the Taylor building is that height. It might be, the Taylor building might be 4 stories, so it's close, but maybe not quite as tall. So this might be one of the taller buildings, especially in the downtown. And sorry, what was the other question?
Elevator?
Yeah.
Oh, I am not certain at this point if there is an elevator. I haven't seen the building plans. So sorry, I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. Councillor Borneman?
Mr. Elgie, is there actually going to be room for 25 parking spaces beneath this building? We've had queries, I think, as you know, from people at the salt dock buildings that, you know, with respect to how tight they are and damage is being done to vehicles. So I just throw that out there.
Through your worship, there is some deficiency on the parking spaces, and they will have to pay cash in lieu for parking for the deficient ones, but they do have 25 spaces shown in the basement. The foundation is actually bigger than the building envelope itself, so it's interesting. They're kind of expanding beyond the walls of the building underground to make do, but they've requested smaller parking sizes as well in order to achieve that as well.
No Ford F-150s allowed.
They might be able to fit, but they'll just want to be careful of how aggressively they swing open their door.
Councillor Keith.
Yes, just a quick question again about parking spaces, and that would be for those underground parking spaces. Will there be any that are designated for accessibility? Because we know those spaces take a little longer. Like, I know what our bylaw is above ground. Is it different underneath?
Through your worship, I believe they have one accessible spot there. They'd be required to provide out one space. I'm not sure if the AODA Act actually requires an accessible space for the residential use. I'm not sure if they're an obligated organization, so that will be something I'll drill down to during the site plan review. There are accessible commercial spaces that the town provides in the general area, though, for day-to-day customers.
Councillor McCann.
Very, very quickly, Mr. Elgie, when is the shovel expected to go into the ground on this project? I'm looking forward to the finished product. It looks, from the artist rendition, is a very impressive looking building.
I know they're very eager. They recently purchased the other property, and they were ready to start on version 1 of this plan. It was just on the single lot that council approved last year. So I believe they are very eager to get a site plan submitted in order to start construction soon, because this is going to be, I think, their model for their technology for the cross laminate wood in the factory they started up in the industrial park.
Right, great. Thank you.
Councillor Borneman, did you have a follow-up, or were you just adjusting the? Okay, all right. Anything further? Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No, that's carried then. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn, that the increase in residential units as noted in the notice of complete application and public meeting for Z 21/4 does not require any additional circulation in accordance with section 3417 of the Planning Act. Any discussion? No. Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No. That's carried then. Moved by Councillor Backman, second by Councillor McCann. That bylaw number 2021-7140 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be considered as read a first time. All in favor? And that's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Backman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Anyone opposed to the passing of this bylaw? No? Okay, that's carried.
Mr. Mayor, we still had 13 minutes left for reports.
I'm reading the adjourning note. Prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, June the 15th, 2021 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held by a Zoom video conferencing and will be live streamed and recorded. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night. What's left of it.
Thanks,
Take care.
everyone. Good night.
Night.